We're covering Trump's struggle to contain the fallout from the war he started in Iran. And later, Andrew Weissman joins us. And I want to tell you, by the end of this hour, we have something very special with author and New York art legend Fab Five Freddy. You can see him there back in the glory days. That's by the end of the hour. So I invite you to stick with us for all of that. We begin, though, with this investigative reporting which undercuts Trump's war claims. Iran's nuclear timeline is about the same as before the war. I'm going to walk through that reporting, but just think about this context and how it's bad for Trump. He broke his vow to avoid those so-called forever wars, which had saddled other Republican presidents. And Trump launched this war in the same region, the Middle East, picking a fight that immediately proved more complex than the initial hawkish claims. In that sense, history has that echo. It's not exactly the same. This is not a ground war, as of today. And there weren't exactly false claims about WMDs inside the country, but there are still lies. That's the context, as I mentioned, for this reporting tonight, because the lies include lies about an adversary's weapons, what they are, what they have, their ability to do harm. That is as serious as it comes when you're dealing with leadership and statecraft. And, of course, brave men and women in our armed forces, their lives on the line. So Trump does find himself, as we begin tonight, far closer to George W. Bush's Mideast problems than 2 months ago. And whatever the many criticisms that are of Donald Trump, and I'll show you some of the polling later in the hour, this is a new bad problem he created that is worse for him and, of course, the country than 2 months ago. It includes a credibility crisis because Reuters is reporting the time that Iran needs to build a nuclear weapon has not changed since last summer. I'm leaving that up on the screen for a second because you may have heard about this or seen an alert on your phone. Of course, it's been discussed on our air today. This is the core of it. We'd always tell you, go read the whole article. Go read as much as you can if you want to be informed. But I am telling you that if you don't read the whole article, this is the part you need to know. This detonates everything Trump and his team has been saying. Because the time that Iran needs to build a nuclear weapon has not changed since last summer, since this war began. That's the key finding. It shreds Donald Trump's main war defense, even as the gas prices have been surging and the war rationales have shifted. You might recall, if you've been following all this, this is what they keep coming back to. Hey, even if gas is more expensive, which they sometimes kind of admit is a problem, and other times they minimize it, but even if that's the case, they claim this costly war would be worth it because the U.S., quote, obliterated Iran's nuclear program. That's what they were claiming. And we live in a world of information and propaganda and viral memes, and people hear that and they go, well, if that's the case, then I guess that's at least the other side of the ledger. High gas prices, but we achieved something over there. But that's false. After 2 months of fighting, Reuters is drawing on the United States' own intelligence. This is not some outside assessment. They are drawing on that, their sources and methods reporting to find that Iran's nuke capabilities are broadly unchanged, with limited new damage to the nuclear program. And that unchanged nuclear program might require destroying or removing Iran's remaining stockpile of highly enriched uranium. But the regime's critics still say it could be helpful to have some kind of global alliance that stands up to Iran, that some steps earlier in this process could have been useful. Remember, Iran has a lot of opponents in the Muslim Middle East and its neighborhood and neighboring countries. But the fact that Trump is failing.
Until the time it mysteriously disappeared, the Smithsonian Institute held Kennedy's brain. But in this breaking story, I assure you, Donald Trump just made sure no one is going to save his. Welcome back into Occupy Democrats, and you have got to see the latest installment of Donald Trump looking like the scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz. If I only had a brain, right here.
Right now, I think I'm sharper than I was 25 years ago. Trust me, I'm like a smart person.
Not really, more like moron.
But let me tell you something, folks. You can't fix stupid.
It's no fun being called a moron by your Secretary of State. So when that subject came up during President Trump's interview with Forbes...
But yes, Donald, you're right. People do like stupid.
I do get good ratings, you have to admit that.
He's saying, let's take an IQ test.
An intelligence duel.
Stupid is as stupid does. Thanks, Forrest Gump.
The president's actual words? I think it's fake news. But if he did that, I guess we'll have to compare IQ tests. And I can tell you who is going to win.
You can't fix stupid.
Oh, but in this breaking story, trust me, Trump is his greatest advocate for himself.
They said to me, would you like to take a cognitive test? I said, is it hard? They said yes. And as the doctor will tell you, I aced it.
You can't fix stupid.
And Trump claiming to love the First Amendment and knowing about it versus his actual actions just goes to show his low IQ.
I love the First Amendment. Nobody loves it better than me.
I know I have an IQ better than all of them. I guarantee you, my IQ is much higher than any of these people.
No, it isn't, Donald. And you said it yourself out loud.
And there was the time he was asked what experts he consults.
I'm speaking with myself, number one, because I have a very good brain.
He's repeatedly tweeted about his very high IQ.
You can't fix stupid.
Smart people don't like me.
No, they don't, because they graduated from Hooked on Phonics at 6 years old.
Are you stupid? Are you a stupid person?
No, President Trump, you are for saying crap like this.
With the exception of the late, great Abraham Lincoln, I can be more presidential than any president that's ever held this office. That I can tell you.
You can't fix stupid.
But in this breaking story, Donald, are you sure you believe your own words right here?
I can handle a bad story better than anybody, as long as it's true.
Well, this breaking story, Donald, by the way, is true because it's all you, about you, showing everyone how dumb and stupid you are. Check this breaking story out.
Trump trolled after Bragg shows he can't grasp the rules of popular kids' game. Donald Trump has been widely mocked for a social media boast that shows he doesn't understand the rules of a card game. During a Truth Social posting spree on Sunday, the 79-year-old president shared an edited image of himself holding several Uno cards, along with the caption, "I have all the cards." The image was shared soon after Trump announced the U.S. will help ships pass through the Strait of Hormuz shipping route, the vital passageway largely closed off due to the war in Iran, so that vessels can freely and ably get on with their business. The president did not disclose exactly how these plans will be carried out. The White House also reshared the image of Trump holding several cards on X to suggest he is winning the negotiations in the Middle East. However, as several social media users noted,
every war needs a justification that survives contact with the result. For Trump's Iran war, that justification was a nuclear program. Gas prices up? Yes, but we obliterated Iran's nuclear capability. 13 Americans dead. Painful, but the threat is gone. Munitions stockpile depleted? Worth it, because Iran can't build a bomb now. That entire argument just collapsed. Reuters relying on US intelligence, not outside analysts, not hostile foreign governments, America's own intelligence apparatus, is reporting that Iran's nuclear timeline is broadly unchanged since last summer before the war started. 2 months of strikes, hundreds of billions in munitions, lives lost on both sides, gas at $4.50 a gallon, and the thing the war was supposed to accomplish wasn't accomplished. The nuclear program is essentially where it was. This is categorically different from a war that achieved partially objectives or is taking longer than expected. This is the primary stated justification for the entire enterprise being quietly conducted by the government's own intelligence, and the timing matters. This finding is emerging precisely as the administration was leaning hardest on that justification to hold together whatever domestic support remained. The messaging was explicit. Yes, gas is expensive, but we obliterated their nuclear program. Half of that sentence was always debatable. Now both halves are. The WMD parallel that's being carefully drawn isn't unfair. This isn't a perfect replay of Iraq 2003. There is no fabricated intelligence dossier, no Colin Powell moment on the moment at the UN, but the structural logic is similar. A president uses the threat of an adversary weapons program to justify military action. The action is taken, and the underlying threat assessments turns out to have been either wrong or misrepresented. The man and woman in uniform who were sent into harm's way based on that framing deserve better than a semantic argument about exactly how misleading the original claims were. The ceasefire semantic debate happening between Hegseth and Rubio in public is its own kind of tale. When seniors officially are publicly disagreeing about whether actively military changes between US and Iranian forces constitute a ceasefire violation. You are not watching a well-managed military operation. You are watching an administration that committed to an endpoint it can deliver, trying to renegotiate the definition of the endpoint in real time. Operation Epic Freeze is over. We are on the project of freedom. It is not a military strategy. It is rebranding. And soldiers in the Strait of Hormuz facing coordinated missile and drone attacks know the difference, even if the press conference don't acknowledge it. The mental fitness question is the one that nobody wants to touch directly, and for understandable reasons. It is uncomfortable territory, it is easily weaponized, and the partisan dynamics make honest assessments difficult. But 7 minutes on pebble blasting a reflection pool during a speech to small business owners isn't an isolated moment. It is part of a pattern that the public is processing in real time, alongside a war that isn't going as claimed, and an economy being squeezed by energy prices, and a approval rating that has now dropped below Biden's worst numbers. The numbers that prompted Democrats to make the agonizing decisions to push their incumbent out of the race. The polling on mental fitness now includes meaningful percentages of conservatives and Republican-leaning voters, reaching the same conclusion the other side reached about Biden. That symmetry is uncomfortable for everyone, but it's real. The bumper sticker detail is worth sitting with for a second. Joe Biden owes me gas money. Affixed to real cars by real Trump voters when gas was $3.50. It is now $4.50 under Trump's war. The people who bought those stickers are feeling their tongues at $1 more per gallon than when they were demanding accountability for the previous administration. The accountability framework they applied to Biden applies with equal force to the current station. Most of them know it. The polling reflects it. What's left of the war's political rationale after the nuclear timeline reporting is essentially nothing which can be stated plainly in public. The economic argument was always underwater. The nuclear argument just got dismantled by the administration's own intelligence. What remains is inertia, the difficulty of ending something once started, the sunk cost logic that has trapped American president in the Middle East before, and the political calculation that admitting failure is worse than continuing to fail. History has seen that calculation before. It rarely ends well for the president making it.